Warm greetings everyone. This is Dr. A. Meenakshi, Professor and Head of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Kamaraj College of Engineering and Technology. Today we are going to explore the core concept in virtualization technology, that is hypervisor. We may be wondering how in a single computer multiple operating systems are running side by side, that is Windows, Linux. So at once it is running parallelly. How it is possible? Yes, that's exactly because of hypervisor that enables us to do. In today's session, we'll understand what is hypervisor, what are the types of hypervisor, how they work, and how hypervisor play a crucial role in cloud computing technology and data centers today. So at the end of today's session, we'll have a clear understanding about the role of hypervisor in optimizing hardware resources. So hypervisor, actually it's a software. We can also call this as a firmware, and it's a virtual machine monitor, right? So hypervisor, it's a form of virtualization software that is used in cloud hosting to divide and allocate the resources on various pieces of hardware. That is, we have hardware in the bottom, and if we want this hardware to be used by virtual machines, then we need hypervisors in the middle. So hypervisor, it's a software or firmware which is used to manage, create, run virtual machines, right? So that's a program. So as I said, this is a software, or we can call as a firmware, which provides partitioning, isolation or abstraction. It is called a virtualization hypervisor. The hypervisor, it's a hardware virtualization technique that allows multiple guest operating system to run on a single host system at the same time. So many terms we had come across. So I'll say what are they. So usually we have a hardware in the bottom, right? So to make utilization of this hardware, we need an OS. So an OS is essential on the top of this hardware, right? And where comes this hypervisor? So on top of this hypervisor, you can have, on top of this OS, we can have this hypervisor, so that above this hypervisor, you'll have multiple virtual machines, right? So you have hardware. On top of this hardware, you have operating system, and generally we call this operating system as a host operating system, right? On top of this host operating system, we may have a hypervisor which acts as an interface between so many virtual machines which are created in this hardware. That is, to access these hardware, we can have n number of virtual machines. Only through hypervisor it can access this hardware, and each and every machine now it's an autonomous, it can act as an autonomous machine, and on top of each virtual machine an OS can be installed separately. Is it okay? So this OS we call it as guest OS, right? So with this idea, we'll revisit the definition what is given. The hypervisor, it's a hardware virtualization technique that allows multiple guest operating system to run on a single system at a same time. It is sometimes called as a virtual machine monitor. So if you want to have multiple operating systems that run on a single computer, this is possible only if you have hypervisor installed in your system, right? So multiple this operating system may be Windows, this may be a Linux, and this may be a Mac OS, right? So we in this example, we are having 3 operating systems running on a single machine, and this is possible if these operating systems are installed on top of each virtual machine separately. Again, this virtual machine needs a hypervisor to manage, create, monitor and maintain these virtual machine. So what is hypervisor now? It's a software, virtualization software used in cloud hosting to allocate the resources on various pieces of hardware, right? So this is the ultimate definition about hypervisor. Let us see the types of hypervisors. So hypervisor is of two types. First type is called as type 1 hypervisor, or we also call this type 1 hypervisor as a bare metal hypervisor, right? What is bare metal hypervisor? We have a hardware, and if we want to have this hardware to be utilized by more number of virtual machines, then of course we need a hypervisor here. Right. So if the hypervisor is directly seated on hardware, existing hardware, then this type of hypervisor is called as bare metal hypervisor. By the name we can have the justification, it is barely seated on the hardware directly. So we don't have any host operating system here. So we have existing hardware. This hardware may be any storage or any processing units and so on, and this hardware generally we call it as a host. If we want to split the resources, hardware resources, to multiple virtual machines, then it is possible only if you have hypervisor, and if that hypervisor directly sits on top of this hardware, then it is called as bare metal hypervisor. Of course, on top of each virtual machines you can load the guest OS separately. On top of each OS we can have different applications as well. So application 1, application 2 and so on. So any number of applications can be loaded on top of this operating system. So this is type 1 hypervisor. And what is type 2 hypervisor? It is also called as hosted hypervisor. Okay. So in hosted hypervisor, of course we have the hardware, right? And this hardware we call it as a host. On top of this hardware we have a host operating system. We will see the differences between type 1 and type 2 hypervisors, right? So type 1 hypervisor, the bare metal hypervisor, the purpose of type 1 hypervisor is to be utilized in a very big enterprise data center, and to have high performance and efficiency, this type of 1 hypervisors can be used. If it is a single desktop based system and it is used for development, means we can go for type 2 hypervisor, and this is to achieve virtualization on operating system. That is, in regular laboratory practices we can go for type 2 hypervisors, because what is the problem in type 2 hypervisor is, you have the hardware here and we have the host OS here. If the host OS gets corrupted, then on top of this we are having hypervisor, then above it we have a virtual machine, and above it we have OS and so many applications here. So everything above this layer will be corrupted automatically, right? So if we want to change the existing operating system, host operating system, this will reflects the performance of virtual machines, operating systems, that is guest operating system, and applications as well. So this is this type of hypervisor, that is type 2 hypervisor, it is not used in very big enterprises. So only type 1 hypervisors will be used in very large scale industries. Then about installation, it sits directly on the hardware, and no host operating system is needed. Of course, we know this sits on the top of host operating systems, and it requires underlying host operating system to load this hypervisor. And what are the use cases? So generally type 1 hypervisors are used for server virtualization, scalability and resource efficiency. But type 2, it is for development, testing, and if you want to go for multiple operating system on one single PC, then it is type 2 is okay. With respect to performance, we can have direct hardware access here, and it is suitable for critical workloads. But type 2 hypervisor, it shares resources with the host, and it is suited for not production use. Okay, so these are all the similarities and differences between type 1 and type 2 hypervisors. So in this complete session, you might have got a clear understanding about what is hypervisor all about, what are the types of hypervisors, why it is very crucial and important in cloud computing and virtualization techniques. Finally, to end with how it helps in optimizing hardware resources. So this is all about today's session on hypervisor. Thank you.